Courage and forgiveness are two sides of the same coin. A courageous heart full of compassion and empathy can lead a person to forgive the unforgivable. As Gandhi said, the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. Nelson Mandela said that courageous people do not fear forgiving for the sake of peace. I'm here today to talk about that from my personal experience. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is the greetings that Muslims exchange among each other, like Shalom Aleichem among the Jews, and peace be with you among Christians. Thank you, President Jeff Bullock, for taking the time to join this event. Thank you, Annalie Ward, Dr. Annalie Ward, sorry about that, for your kind introduction. Special thanks to Mary Bryan and Dr. Annalie Ward for organizing this event today and inviting me to share my story, Courage to Forgive. I'm honored to spend the next couple of hours here with you on the beautiful Dubuque University campus. And I hope the time we spend together will be a blessing to all of us. I was fortunate enough to spend some time in the White House last week. 16 years ago, as a newcomer to the US, standing outside the White House, I never would have imagined that the path of mercy and forgiveness would eventually lead me inside one day. I was honored to have had the opportunity to connect with several departments to share my story, share my message, and to explore ways to work together. I'm equally honored to share the same message with you today. On my way to your campus, I began reflecting upon all that has made me who I am today. Beside my faith, my upbringings, there are some powerful stories from my childhood that deeply touched me and inspired me to be kind, courageous, forgiving, and to be determined to help the others. In 5th grade, I learned a story of a young boy named Baijid Bostami. Baijid was a very obedient boy, especially to his widowed and ailing mother. Late one night, when the rest of the world slept, he quietly read while keeping a vigil. Suddenly, out of the profound stillness, his mother awoke and asked Baijid for a glass of water. As there was no water at home, no nearby source, Baijid went to a distant fountain to bring water for his mother. But by the time he got back, his mother was asleep again. Instead of disturbing her mother, Baijid stood still beside her bed with a glass of water in his hand. In the morning, when his mother woke, she was surprised to see Baijid standing beside her with a glass of water. Soon she remembered everything, and her heart was burst with love. She embraced her son and prayed for him with all her heart. After I read that story, I wanted to be that boy with a glass of water, not only for my mother, but also for others. Growing up in the poor country of Bangladesh, I have seen the plight of underprivileged, needy, deprived, what they go through every single day just to meet their basic needs, desperate just to live like a human being. I was very fortunate and took it for granted. But their pain and suffering deeply touched me, And I began asking myself what I could do. Soon I started giving whatever I could to the poor people who came at our door begging. And one day, my mother caught me while I was giving away her outfit to a poor woman. And when she asked me what I was doing, I told her of my plans to help others and confessed this was not the first time I gave her sari away. She was surprised, and she had been wondering why her closet was thinning. She smiled and told me that I should enjoy growing up first, get a good education, earn a good living, and then commit myself regularly to help others in whatever ways I could. I took her advice to heart, and I worked hard to get a first-rate education at a military boarding school, and later went on to be an Air Force pilot for the Bangladesh Air Force. But after graduating as a pilot officer, I did not feel my destiny was there. Even though I had a 10 years bond with Bangladesh Air Force, I asked for release, and I was lucky. I got a release. And when I got a chance to come to US, I took it. So temporarily, I left my family, my fiance, back home and came to the US to get the education I wanted, to experience the American dream, and prepare myself to help others in pursuit of their dreams for a better life. But within a short time, my American dream turned into an American nightmare. I was not only treated as a lesser person because of my skin color and my appearance, but targeted for execution. This world then being a better place once I did not exist. Even though it took time, I responded as my parents and my faith taught me, with love and forgiveness. These are the core values of Islam, but also, of course, of Christianity, Judaism, and many other religions. This response of mercy did not prevent profound sufferings, but it did create a space for many blessings. From my personal experience and the courageous journey to forgiveness, I have discovered that as research confirms that, well, actually that's me before I went inside the White House 16 years back, and this is last week. So from my personal experience and the courageous journey to forgiveness, I have discovered, as research confirms, that it can make us happier, improves our health, sustain relationship, boost kindness and connectedness, can help heal the wounds of violence, forgiveness benefits everybody. Before I share my story, I would like to pose a very unusual question. What would you do if a man shoots you in the face and left you for dead? Think for a second. Imagine that you are minding your own business when, for no reason that you could see, a stranger raised a shotgun, aimed it at your face, and pulled the trigger. Think for a second. If you survived, what would you do? With a show of hands, how many of you think you'd want to get back at the person who did this to you? I see some brave hands. I see many brave hands. I see a lot of hands. Well, it is natural to want to fight back, and there is nothing shameful in having that instinct. But sometimes, our instinct does not serve us well in the long run. It was September 21st, 2001. I was working at a friend's gas station in Dallas, Texas. It was raining cats and dogs since morning. Business was pretty slow. Around 12:30 p.m., a customer walked in, wearing bandana, sunglasses, baseball cap, and he had a double-barrel shotgun that he pointed directly at my face. I was robbed in the same gas station before. It was a pretty funny experience because I never thought I would be robbed in my dream country. It was middle of August 2001, around 2:30 p.m., a customer walked in with the soft drinks and a dollar bill. He's a customer inside the gas station. I punched the cash register, and he pulled out a gun out of his pocket. Even though I had no intention of buying his gun, I thought he wanted to sell his gun because that gas station was in a poor neighborhood, and many times customers to come with their printer, with their jewelry, just name anything to make a quick cash. So I thought that this gentleman wants to sell his gun, and I said, "How much you're asking for?" And he said, "No, give me the money." I said, "Sure, but you're not telling me how much you're asking for." He said again, "Give me the money." I said, "But sir, you're not telling me how much you're asking for." So we went back and forth 3 times without knowing I was being robbed in my own gas station. On the 3rd time, he cocked the gun and placed on my forehead, and he said, "If you don't give me the money right now, I will blow your brain." And that time I realized, I'm being robbed. I gave him the cash. He left. But when this gentleman came, I did not think that he is here to sell his gun. I was ready with the cash on the counter. And I said, "Sir, here's all the money. Take it, but please do not shoot me." He was not looking at the money, though. He was looking at me. And I felt a very cold airflow through my spine. Why he's not looking at the money? Why he's looking at me? And then he mumbled a question, "Where are you from?" And that time I realized he is not here for money, he's here for me. And before I could say more than "excuse me," he shot me from 4 to 5 feet away with that double-barrel shotgun on the right side of my face, on the right side of my head. I felt it first, like a million bees stinging my face at once, and then I heard the sound like an explosion. I looked down to the floor, and I saw blood was pouring like an open faucet from the right side of my head. Frantically, I placed both hands on my head as if I had to keep my brain from spilling out. I remember myself screaming, "Mom," extremely loudly. I felt I was dying. I was bleeding pretty badly. I looked left like that, and I saw the gunman was still standing and looking at me. And I thought, if I don't pretend I'm dying, he would shoot me again. I fell down on the floor, and after a few seconds, the gunman left the store. I grabbed the phone. I tried to dial 911, but my body was shaking so badly, I could not do that. I ran to the barbershop next door, and 3 men inside looked at me in horror, and assuming the gunman was right behind me, scrambled to escape out back. And I grabbed one of them, and I screamed, "Please call 911. I'm dying. I don't want to die today. Please call 911. And when he made a quick call, I caught myself in the mirror. And the image reflecting back at me was gruesome, like something straight out of a horror movie. A few minutes earlier, I had been a smiling, healthy young man, and in the instant it took to pull the trigger, I was disfigured, I was bleeding badly, I was fighting to stay awake, I was fighting to stay alive. And I felt that I cannot die yet. I have not seen anything with my life yet. I haven't accomplished anything with my life yet. It's too early to leave this world. I kept reciting all the verses from the Holy Quran that I memorized in my childhood, and I kept begging God to give me a second chance. The ambulance worker found me running around, running around in the parking lot. And as soon as I saw the ambulance, I started running towards it, taking off my shirts and my shoes off. On my way to the hospital, my eyes were closing. It was too heavy to keep open. My brain was shutting down. And at that time, images of my mother, my father, my siblings, and my fiancé appeared before my eyes, and then a graveyard. And I felt maybe my time must have been up, and that's why I was seeing their faces one last time. My mouth was moving like a machine, and I begged God, please do not take me today. Please give me a second chance. And I promise, if you give me a chance to live, I would do good things with my life. Finally, 5 hours after I was shot, I lost consciousness, and I was put onto life support. The next thing I remember asking, where am I? Because of this gunshot, my jaw was almost stuck. I couldn't open my eyes, and I received, from the photo you can see, that I received more than 38 pillars on my face, and my jaw was stuck. And I thought I died, and anxiously waiting to hear something. And within a few seconds, I heard, "Good morning, Mr. Bhuiyan, you're in the hospital." That was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. My eyes were full of tears, not from the pain, but from the joy of happiness, still being alive. But the joy did not last for long. The hospital, which was private and expensive, and I had no health insurance, discharged me within a few hours and told me to arrange the follow-up treatment at my own. The second part of my American nightmare just began. In the meantime, it was soon discovered that the man with the gun had been a local white supremacist named Mark Stroman, who was on a shooting rampage to kill as many Muslims as possible as a retaliation of 9/11 terrorist attack. He shot and killed a man named Waqar Hassan, a husband and father of 4 from Pakistan. On September 21st, he shot me on the face, and on October 4th, he shot and killed Vasudev Patel, a husband and father of 2 from India. And he claimed that he had been hunting Arabs, but not a one of his victims was from Middle East. After his arrest, he told the local media that what he did, most Americans wanted to do, but didn't have the guts. He claimed he is the true American, he's a patriot. He should be given medal for his action. He blamed me and my kind for 9/11. He was tried and convicted. On April 2002, he was sentenced to death by lethal injection. So he committed a crime, he was punished. The story should have been ended there, but it did not. And I'm not here today simply because I survived, but because I have learned and grew from this traumatic and life-altering experience. And I would like to share some of these experiences with you for a couple of reasons. First, you are the future of our nation. Today you are a student. Tomorrow you will lead the country, you will lead the world. You are unstoppable. You can use your education, passion, and desire to want to change things, to help propel my message and cause, to eradicate hate and violence from this world, and to bring about a world without hate for all of us. And I share my story as a launching pad in hopes of inspiring you not only to find ways to spread the message I talk about, but also to look within yourself to find ways to share your own unique stories and experiences to build a better world. As unbelievable as this may sound, that I have gained more from this experience than I have lost. So let me tell you first what I lost. From this incident, as I said, that I got more than 38 pillars on my face. 2 of them went through my eye, one of my eyes, and I lost a vision. I had better than perfect 20 by 10 vision. As a result of the shooting incident, I would never be able to fly. I lost a tooth, which was thankfully replaced. From this X-ray report, you can see my face was peppered with bullet fragments, which had dug themselves into my skull. And I'm still carrying more than 35, and when I touch my face, I feel it's all bumpy. My father suffered a stroke. When he heard what had happened to me, he could not take it. But thank God he survived. My medical bill was piling up. It crossed $60,000, and I didn't know how to pay the medical bill. And I reached out to Red Cross with the hope that they will help me with the medical bill. But finally, Red Cross told me I qualified for 1 week's worth of groceries. Not only that, I developed some sorts of fear that if I go outside, somebody will kill me. And I stopped going outside for a while, and when I did, I kept looking over my shoulder. It killed me mentally. I couldn't go outside, I couldn't lead a normal life. I lost my home since I could no longer work and pay rent. I lost my fiancée as well, since my doctor advised me not to fly until all the medical surgeries were over. And my fiancée thought I would never be able to come back home. So she abandoned our relationship, moved on, married somebody else. I had lost a great deal. But I would not and did not give up. I did not lose my hope, my dreams, and my faith in God. In military school, I learned if I ever fall, I should get right back up and try again. Giving up was not an option if I wanted to be successful and impactful in life. I never questioned God about why all these bad things happened to me. Rather, I prayed and asked for the strength to get through it without losing my dreams and my faith. I truly believed that there was a reason God saved my life and put me through these unimaginable pain and sufferings that I experienced. I felt He wanted me to go through this to prepare myself for something bigger in the future. I remember my parents sharing me a verse from the Holy Quran, chapter 2, verse 286, where it says that God will never place a burden on a soul that it cannot bear. Human beings can bear unimaginable, unthinkable burdens. Even when initially they think they can't, they just can't take it anymore, yet they live through it. I went through great difficulties in those first few years after I was shot, and I made it and became stronger each and every single day. I remember another verse from my childhood, chapter 94, verse 5 and 6, where it says that so verily with every difficulty there is a relief. Verily with every difficulty there is a relief. And slowly relief came. A friend took me in, so I had a place to stay. A Christian doctor performed eye surgeries one after another one before he received any assurance how he would be paid in the future. A Muslim man from the local mosque gave me a scholarship to go to school. And as a result of that education, I was able to get a good job in IT, and I was able to get myself in a stable life, in a stable condition. And in 2009, I was able to go for a Muslim religious pilgrimage to Mecca along with my mother. So with the mercy of God, with the help of good people, I was able to get out of debt and come back to a normal life. And it was in Mecca that I deeply realized that hate and revenge may bring temporary satisfaction, but they never bring peace or lasting solution to any situation. They only bring more disaster and misery. It was in Mecca, I kept thinking about the moment I was shot. I thought about my shooter, Mark Stroman, sitting on a death row, waiting to be executed. And I remembered, and I thought that this incident changed his life irrevocably, just as mine had. And I remembered the promise I made in my deathbed that if I get a chance to live, I would do good things with my life. I asked myself, what had I done so far? I had done well. But who had been benefited? It's only me. Maybe that was why it felt as though something was missing in my life. I prayed for guidance. And I realized that by killing Mark Stroman, we would simply lose a human life without dealing with the root cause. And I thought that I suffered terribly, but I did not see any value in him suffering as well. I started seeing him as a victim too. Instead of hating him, I learned to see him as a human being like myself. And I thought, if he was given a second chance to live, even behind bar, he might become a better person. So I knew with clarity what I had to do. My faith, my upbringings, and all those powerful stories in my childhood gave me the courage not only to forgive the unforgivable, but also to fight to save a human life who tried to end mine. I returned to the US and started lobbying to save the life of my attacker, Mark Stroman. I'm still grateful to Amnesty International, Muslim Legal Fund of America, for supporting my campaign. Special thanks to Reprieve. It's a London-based nonprofit organization to help to take my campaign to the European Union Parliament, German Parliament, and at the headquarters of Lundbeck is a lethal injection manufacturer in Denmark, where I was able to convince them to write a letter to the governor of Texas, Rick Perry, urging him not to use their product to kill human beings. At the end of 2011, Lundbeck announced that they will not supply this drug anymore to the US prisons, which carry out execution. Not only that, I also went to the US Supreme Court asking for clemency for my attacker, Mark Stroman. Despite all these efforts, Mark Stroman was executed on July 20th, 2011. But before that, though, Mark came to know a little bit about me, the man he had tried to kill. And when he heard that I formed a coalition of Jews, Christians, Muslims, Hindus, and atheists to get him removed from death row, he could not believe. He was reduced to tears. This is not something he expected from the Muslims. At the end of his life, in a statement, he said, "In a free world, I was free, but I was locked up in a prison inside myself because of the heart I carried in my heart. It is due to Rais's message of forgiveness that I am more content than I have ever been." Mark Stroman. And he also wrote a long letter to me right before he was executed. This is the letter from death row, a month before his execution. And in a paragraph, he said that I was raised by my violent father, who taught me many extremist things which I am unlearning right now, and I'm still working on unlearning some of them. I don't know who your parents were, but it's obvious they are wonderful people to lead you to act this way to someone you have every right to hate, Mark Stroman. And the way he ended his letter, at the end he said that he never had any hopes in his entire life. Hope was a drop of water in his hand. But my campaign, my forgiveness gave him the amount of hope which he never had his entire life. He thanked me before he was executed. At his execution, his last words were, "Hate is going on everywhere. It has to stop. Hate causes a lifetime of pain." Let me show a video of Mark Sturman a week before he was executed.
Mr. Reyes, thank you for your inspiring act of compassion towards me. You have forgiven me. You have forgiven the unforgivable, and I have a lot of love and respect for you, for the Patels, the Hassans. Thank y'all for what y'all have done. The question is, if I don't make it, what do I want you to carry on? Man, just what you're doing today is remarkable. To get out there and take center stage and try to get the world, put the world to rights. That's a remarkable thing you're doing, and just continue with the human rights movement, because you are touching so many people. I've been getting so many letters and messages from all over the world that you, Mr. Reyes, are inspiring them, and that right there strengthens me. So, dude, just rock on. Thank you for giving me. Okay.
Well, it moves me profoundly to think that the man who tried to kill me, because of the ways in which I was different from him, learned to see the ways in which we were the same enough to call me brother before he died. Here's what I have learned from this traumatic experience. It seems to me that although retaliation is a natural response, it does not make you feel as good as you think it will. Any harm you inflict or hope to see inflicted against another human being winds up hurting you too. We are all cut from the same cloth, and when one of us bleeds, we all bleed. And when instead we follow the direction to do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, we cannot wish harm to come to any of us, even someone who has hurt us. It would be like wishing harm to ourselves. And when I was able to see Mark as a human being like me, and then he hurt too, I was able to forgive him and wish for good things for him. And that took any hint of bitterness away from my heart and allowed me to be whole again. And you have seen the profound effect forgiveness had on Mark Sturman. God says in the Holy Quran, chapter 41, verses 34, Idfa billati hiya ahsan, which means when people are nasty, be nice back to them. What will happen? In the next line, it says, the person who is your worst enemy will become your best friend. And that is exactly what happened here. The man who shot me had changed. He hated me when he didn't know me, but said he loved me before he died. I suffered terribly and lost a tremendous amount because of someone else's hatred. But that tragedy helped me to see the possibility of a world without hate, a world full of love, compassion, and empathy. I could not save the life of Mark Sturman, but perhaps I can help save future Mark Sturmans. I dedicated much of my time working to prevent violence, hate crimes, to eradicate hatred by educating people about the transformational power of mercy and forgiveness, empowering people to connect with others unlike you, encouraging everyone to take time to learn from one another instead of the stereotypes and the labels that society has imposed. And I think one way to do this is to teach our young people to treat everyone equally, regardless of their skin color, socioeconomic status, religious affiliation, sexual orientation, and cultural and ethnic background. I am the founder and president of a nonprofit organization entitled World Without Hate, and we believe in the transformational power of mercy and forgiveness, and we are dedicated to the idea and the proposition contained within the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that all people, regardless of who they are, what they have done, they are entitled to their basic inherent human rights and dignity. And my campaign, World Without Hate, is parallel to that very idea that people in our own hearts have to get beyond our own prejudice if we are to bring about the world that we all want. A world without hate, a world without violence, and a world without victim. And I believe, the way to respect human rights and to move past prejudice is to acknowledge the value of humanity that we all share and to empathize with one another. In order to create a world without hate, we must remember a world without hate has to be created in our hearts and mind first. I am dedicated to transforming the human heart, one heart at a time. After visiting a class of 6th grade in Irvine, California, a student decided to start a nonprofit to help the homeless in Los Angeles. While speaking at a maximum security prison in Genoa, Italy, an older inmate started walking towards me. A little bit of nervous. It's a maximum security prison. In the middle of your speech, somebody's walking towards you. I got a little nervous. But then when he came close to me, I saw his eyes were full of tears. And as we embraced, he told me that he hurt someone and he will never know whether that person will ever forgive him. But he wanted to touch me because I forgive someone who tried to end my life. I believe all of you here today want a better, just, and more forgiving world. But what are you prepared to do to get it? Everywhere I go, I hear people express how frustrated they are living in fear of the other. How do we bring about change? And I believe it starts within each of us, taking a moment to check where our moral compass lies. Take a moment to soften your heart, make your tone a little friendlier. Take time to connect with others. Take a moment to stand up against all manifestations of hateful thoughts, acts, speech, writings, acts, and deeds. Take a moment to stand up against any kind of injustice, no matter who is the victim or the victimizer. Because we should remember, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, that injustice anywhere is a threat to peace everywhere. Take a moment to forgive someone who has hurt you in the past. Reach out to family, friends, neighbors going through mental, psychological, physical, financial challenges instead of ignoring them, because by doing so, you could save many innocent lives. And while doing so, if you ever feel discouraged, I want you to remember a powerful message of Mother Teresa. And I will leave you with this. Often, people are often unreasonable and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are honest, people may cheat you. Be honest anyway. If you find happiness, people may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today may be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give your best anyway. In the end, for you to see is between you and God. It was never between you and them. It's an honor to be here. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I believe we have a few minutes for question and answer. And again, I'm not a scholar. I'm not an expert on anything. I'm just a simple human being like many of you. I'll do my best to talk from my heart. And if I can, I will point you to the right direction, the best I can. Any question? Yes.
I just want to thank you. That's all. No question. I just want to thank you for what you're doing. It's a beautiful message. Creating a beautiful world. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Yes.
Hey there. This isn't actually a question, it's just more of a comment. And in college, I went to The Hague and studied in the Peace Palace for a few weeks. And one of the things we talked about was what, the philosophy of peace is, a philosophy course. And one of the things that you said really echoed with what I learned there about how you can't have the institutions, you can't have The Hague without having inner peace. And I really liked what you said about that. So how peace starts within, and that there can't be, institutional-wide peace until you learn to have that peace within individuals. So thank you.
Well, that's a great question. Again, I will talk from my own experience and from my heart. The way I find peace, I'll talk about that. That once you stand on the moral high ground, once you do the next right thing, no matter how hard is that, how tough is that, once you do the next right thing, you will feel peace in your heart because you're doing the right thing. Once you do something right, you'll be on the moral high ground. And once in the moral high ground, nobody can beat you on that. And once you feel empathy for others, you will always feel peace in your heart because you always put yourself in others' shoes. So those kind of things, it helps me to find peace and stay in peace, that the heart is full of compassion and empathy. I always try to do the next right thing, even though I may not like it. It's the right thing to do. Do it. And always think as we, not just me, that what makes me, I tell people that when I see someone around me smiling, is happy, it makes me happy. When I do something that makes someone happy, it brings a smile to their face, it also brings a smile on my face. So those are the things I can tell you that doing the next right thing, stand on the moral high ground, always feel empathize for others, that will give you peace. And if you are hurt anytime, try to forgive the person because you don't know where that person was coming from, what kind of lifestyle they had, how they grew up, what they went through in their life. So once you feel empathize, once you forgive them, you'll find peace as well. Good question. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
I'm wondering if you could speak to after you were shot, okay, and after all these things started happening to you, such as your fiance leaving and your medical issues, can you speak to how you found it in your heart, how you found it in your attitude to go instead of from self-pity to I can make this a positive?
Yes. Very good question. Well, the way I was raised, I give a lot of credit to my mother, and this is the Women's History Month, so big thanks to all the women who made history and also those who are here. I give a big thank to my mother as well. When I was a little kid, my mother taught me that when people hurt you, the first thing you should do, you should put a zipper on your mouth. If you check my pocket, you will see there's a virtual zipper on my pocket. I carry it everywhere I go. And the reason she told me that once you put a zipper in your mouth, actually you're taking time. You're not responding or reacting right away. And by taking time, you're giving an opportunity to the person who hurt you to think through it. And the cycle ends there, because you're being hurt. Now it's your time to hurt back. You're not doing that. It ends there. It gives a chance to the person to think that I was mean, I said something bad, I hurt that person. He didn't say anything back to me. Today or tomorrow, that person will come back to you. There's a lot of benefits, taking the time, controlling your tongue. And my mother also told me that you cannot change what already happened, but you can change what is going to happen next. So I remembered that after I was shot, and as I said, that I was in the Air Force back home. I quit my job to come to US for higher education, to do something bigger and better that I could not do in my birth country. And this incident, it completely destroyed my life. And I had options. Either I go back and feel sorry for me for the rest of my life and stay as a victim for the rest of my life, or I had the option to stay here, face the reality, pursue the dreams. As I said, that I did not learn how to give up. I stayed back. So I thought, no, I'm going to stay here, face the reality, and if I want to move on, I cannot stay sad, depressed, angry. I cannot. Then I will not be able to move on. So I remember her teachings, and that helped me to forgive, but not to forget and try to mend the relationship. I wanted to move on. I wanted to drop the grudge, the thoughts of anger, all the negativity. I wanted to drop from my system and move forward, go back to school, work at Olive Garden as a waiter, learn the culture, learn the language, improve my people skill, overcome the fear that I developed after being shot. So everything, it came together one after another one, not give up the mentality I had that I should not give up. I came here to pursue some dreams. I should stay. I should go back to school, think positive, do the next right thing, go back to school, go back to work, where people will not shoot me again. Nobody goes to a restaurant to shoot people. So that's what I did, one after another one, all the positive thing and the next right thing. It helped me to stay positive because my focus was rebuild my life. It's already destroyed in this country. No loved ones, no family member, no money in my pocket, and as a student in this country. So the positive thoughts, doing the next right thing, not give up mentality, and the hard working, this all, and the faith, of course, it helped a tremendous part to move me forward. Very good question. Thank you, sir.
Your life is building bridges, not walls.
Very good point. Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, please.
Were you able to attend his trial? So what did you all talk about at the trial?
Right. Even though I didn't want to go to the trial because I was terrified to face him again in the courtroom, but since I was the only live witness, the court asked me that I have to go. I had no option. I went to the court, and I was asked just to tell what happened on that day, and I did. And they also asked me that, do I see the person in the courtroom? They did not ask me, do I prefer death penalty or what is my opinion on the punishment? And I had no knowledge about American justice system. I had no knowledge about how things happen here. Because you are shot in the face, now you're trying to rebuild, and you are traumatized with the whole incident. So I had no contribution on the trial except sharing my story, what happened that day, and identifying him in the court. And it was already predetermined that the DA's office will seek death penalty. And I thought that's how the system runs. There is no point of asking the victims what they want. It's already decided by the DA's office. But then in course of time, when I went through a healing process, and I realized that every month somebody is going into the death chamber in Texas. But but still people are committing crime. They're going into the system. So instead of executing people, let's execute the system that puts people into that system. Let's change our society, why people kill, why people go to the death penalty, the death row. So even though I was not able to contribute at the beginning, during the trial, but when I was able to think through it, settle, sober with my life, I realized that was not the right thing to do. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm a mother of 3 children, and I think I tried to instill in them the type of values that your mother instilled in you. And I think my kids are a lot better people than I am. And as they were growing up, nothing as terrible has happened to you, but some bad things happened to them along the way. And I would feel this anger when bad things would happen to my kids. And it's a real struggle for me as a mom, to forgive people who did things to my children. And I'm wondering how your mom dealt with what happened to you. And if it was easy for her to forgive, or if it was a struggle, and how she's dealing with all of this.
Well, what happened when I was in the hospital, somebody called my parents, and I didn't know that somebody called my parents. And they told my dad that your son had been shot in the face in the hospital in a critical condition, pray for him. And after that, there was no follow-up phone call. And that tells something went wrong. That's why nobody's calling back. So my parents thought I died because there was no phone call within the next 3 to 4 days. It was a disaster back home. You can imagine that you sent your son to a foreign country as a student, and now no good news. He's in the hospital. So after 4 days, when I was able to talk a little bit, I called my mom, and there was no conversation. It was just crying on both ends. And after that, what my mom told me that even though she felt at that point that she lost her son, but when she got the phone call back from me, it gave her a new life. And she said, God gave you back to me. Whatever already happened in the past, I'm going to think about that. Whatever you want to do, go for it, and I will support you. So when I started this campaign, Saving Mark Stroman's life, matter of fact, I was giving my mom status update every other day. I used to call back home in average every other day, and the first thing my mom would ask me, how far you have progressed? What is the good news? Is there any hope that you'll be able to save this life? So she not only supported my work, but she was always there to ask what is happening. Is there any way? She said, I'm praying for you and also for the guy. And I believe faith was a big part of my mom's life. And still now, she cries and she said, there's a reason behind God gave you back to me, back to the world. And the work you have been doing right now, maybe that was the reason behind God saved you, to build more bridges, not to bring any more wall. So my mom is very proud, and she tells me that that's how I raised you, to be forgiving, to be kind. Even though you went through pain and suffering, but I didn't want you to be hateful and revengeful. So my mom is very proud of me, and she prays extra half an hour for me every single day. I don't know why she does it, but she does every single day. Any other question? Okay, yes, sir. Well, there are many things I do in my life without any expectation. Because once you expect, there is a point of frustration. There's a point of disappointment. You expect it didn't happen. When I was in Germany last December, I was speaking to for 10 days, meeting with high school kids, junior high school and also university. One day in a classroom, I think he's a 7th grade boy, asked me, why there is so much hate in your country? Why people hate so much each other in the US. And then he also mentioned about Mr. Trump. He said that right now he is saying all these bad things about Muslims. So once you go back, what are you going to do? So I told him that, well, even though he hates me and my people and my kind, I'm not going to hate him back because there is no nothing good is going to come out of that. So when I came back to US, I thought, it's better to write a nice letter with respect, so that he understands that even I had the options to hate him, but I'm not doing that. I'm trying to build a bridge. There's a huge gap, definitely, huge gap. Let's see if we could, close this gap. So I wrote this letter with expectation, only one expectation, so that he or his staff will read that. And we did that. That was the goal. Write it and push it through all different kinds of channels, through New York Times, through all the friends I have in the different departments. And I told them, make sure that it goes to him. And I believe he read that. Even though in my letter I asked for a lunch meeting, I know he's not going to sit with me for a lunch meeting before the election is over, but at least it's a nice offer that I'm here to sit with you. I don't hate you. The way I told my attacker in a phone conversation, I told him before he was executed that I never hated you. I never, I forgave you. It changed him. So I want to make sure that he also get the message that as a Muslim, even though he's hating me, I'm willing to sit with him and talk, build a bridge, not a wall. So maybe one day, who knows, once this crazy election is over, maybe one day he will find himself, and maybe he will be interested to send the offer. Come on over to the Trump Tower in New York City and have a luxury lunch or dinner. Anything can happen. People can change. Any other question? Yes, sir?
What does the Quran teach in terms of Mark Stroman's eternal destiny? If you hadn't forgiven him, or he hadn't found forgiveness, do you feel that your forgiveness changed to be on the other side of eternity for him?
Well, that's a very good question. What Islam teaches, that, again, I'm not a scholar, but I will tell what from my knowledge, and that human forgiveness and also God's forgiveness. What God will do, that is up to him. I don't know what he will do with Mark Stroman, but as a human being, my faith taught me to forgive, and I did that. And also my faith, my faith teaches me that without worrying who will be forgiven by God, or who will go to hell, who will go to heaven, I was told that not to worry about that. He said that do your best that you are supposed to do in this world without thinking who is going to heaven and who is going to the other place, what God will do to whom. It's not our responsibility within our scope. We are supposed to just do what we are asked to do. So back to your point, I don't know, because I did my part. I don't know what God will do to him. We'll find out in the final judgment day. But I pray for him that even though he did bad things, but God is forgiving, the most forgiving. He can do anything he wants. I prayed for him that God forgive him as well, because all the victims, all three, the other two victims' families also forgave Mark Stroman. I forgave him, and we prayed for him that give him some peace and forgive him so that he can go to the good place. Thank you for the question. Is at the back. Well, yes, my father was instrumental as well, but as I attended a military boarding school, I was always going back and forth, and my father was transferred to UAE. He was an electrical engineer, and he worked for the Bangladesh government. Back in the late 70s, my father was transferred to build the UAE government's phone infrastructure. So he was always traveling back and forth. And when I was home, he was in UAE. When I was in the military school, he came home. So there was less interaction with my father, but definitely he was there, and he was a big part of my life. But I spent more time with my mother than my father, because my mother was always home. She was a housewife, took very good care of us, but the father provided whatever the mother needed to raise us. And also when we had time together, and my father is also very pious, and he also visited Mecca 3 times, shared a lot of his stories about his experience and also about mercy and forgiveness. But most of the the teachings I learned from my mother because of my lifestyle and my dad's lifestyle didn't interact that much. But good thing is that now they're here with me in Dallas, Texas, and I'm trying my best to spend as much time as possible with my mom and dad. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Well, let me start with this, with the quote from Sermon of the Mount, when Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, talked to his follower that, when he was asked how many times we're supposed to forgive our brothers and sisters, right? And he said, is it 7 times? He said, no, it's 70 times 7. But then it should not stop after that. It should become an attitude, not just one-time act, right? So same thing Islam teaches, that, it's a characteristics. It's not just one time you forgive and then you say, I've done my part. God will take me to the heaven. It's not like that. Forgiveness is not a switch that you say it's on and it's off. It's not like that. It's not a destination. It's a process. And in order to go to this process, you have to go through a healing process. Once you are hard, the first thing doesn't come into your mind, I forgive him. That's not the first thing come into our mind. Because once you're hard, we try to, understand what just happened. We try to take some time to process what just happened. So forgiveness, it is something that you have to go through that process, and you have to ask yourself why you want to forgive. Is it for you, or is it for him, or is it for a better good? For a common good. And again, as I said in my speech, that if you see the bigger effect of the forgiveness, it not only benefits the perpetrator, it also benefits you. Once you're hurt, maybe you are sad, you are depressed, you are, once you wake up in the morning, you think about that story or that situation that when you are hurt, you are angry, you're holding a negative energy on your body. And the person who hurt you, he is having the control of your happiness. Because he already done what he did to you or she did to you, but you are the one still carrying that load, the negative energy. It's like holding a backpack on your back, and you are carrying with that every time. And sometimes if you see that person, you get angry. You want to do something, but then you control yourself. But once you forgive, you're dropping that load, extra load you are carrying on your shoulder. You are dropping that grudge, the thoughts of violence, anger from your heart, and you feel lighter, which I feel every single day, that you feel lighter. And the benefit of this forgiveness, as I said, that you will feel the blood pressure is not going up and down. It improves your health. It makes you happy that you forgive, you got the control of your life back to you. That person, he is no more in control of your happiness. You are back in your control. And also, it boosts your kindness. As I said, it's a character. It's not a one-time act. It's not just a destination you choose. It's become a character, an attitude. So once you forgive, you'll find that you're being more kind, more empathetic to others. It helps. And it also help you to heal the wounds you have in your heart. So this is a basic forgiveness, means you can forgive, but you don't have to mend the relationship. You don't have to forget the act. You can move on. It is good that once you see the person, you don't get angry, you don't get mad, you're no more sad and depressed. But that doesn't mean the justice cannot take place. You can forgive and let the justice run at its own. And there is a huge misunderstanding in between justice and forgiveness. A lot of people, they think that forgiveness means the criminal is off the hook. There'll be no justice. You are weak because you cannot send a message. You cannot do anything. You are weak. But actually that is not. Once you forgive, it benefits you. It also gives a chance to the perpetrator to connect with you, to connect with the society. And he can go through, or she can go through his own system, to the justice system. But the highest form of forgiveness is once you forgive and forget, and try to mend the relationship. That is the highest form of forgiveness. It's not easy, but if you could do it, it's the best. For example, your best friend did something to you, and you miss your friendship. You miss your friend, all the good time you had hanging out in the downtown square or the University of Dubuque campus in the cafeteria. You miss this time. So you decided that let me go back and see if you could mend the relationship again. I forgave him or her. Let's go back. And you sit together, talk through it, and find a way to move forward, mend the relationship. So that is the highest form of forgiveness. If you cannot go up to that, at least forgive. Don't forget. Move on so that you can enjoy your life. Of course, revenge is sweet, but God's mercy and forgiveness is sweeter. Any other question? The last question? Yes, sir?
How do you forgive someone if they don't think they did anything wrong? Like the guy that shot me, he thought, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. I don't know why he's saying this. Would that have been more, how would you still forgive him if he believed he didn't do anything wrong?
Well, after he went to death row, several years, until I reached out to him, he never asked for forgiveness. He never said anything, to the media or to the friends or family members that he did such a horrible thing to these people and their loved ones. He never said anything like that. But that was not my point that, he never asked for forgiveness, why should I do that? I did it because I felt it in my heart that this is the right thing to do and that was the beauty. Without being reached out by him or by anyone, I did it at my own, and it had effect. It had a tremendous amount of effect on him. He couldn't believe that. Can you imagine a 42 years old grown-up man, crying like a baby? He never asked for forgiveness. He never asked what me and the other people did together. So that was the beauty, that unconditional forgiveness. And that struck him so powerfully that he said all these good things. He wrote this letter. He told the news media last 3 months of his life. He gave so many interviews to the local, national, international media, and he said how he was wrong and why he did what he did. And I would like to tell you that when he was 16, he asked for his birth certificate from his mother to get a driver license. And when he saw his birth certificate, he saw there was a different guy's name, as his father. And he asked his mother that, who is this guy? My father is Mr. Bart Baker, but who is this guy? And his mother told him that this is your father. And he said, how come you never told me this? I had a different father, and I knew this guy who is staying at home is my father, who was abusive, who tortured me, put me through all this unimaginable pain and sufferings. His mother told him that I didn't want you. If I had $50, I would have aborted you. Now, can you imagine if you grow up with that kind of mentality that your life is worth of $50? Will you have any respect for you or for others? So he grew up in that kind of environment. He never asked for forgiveness. He never reach out to anyone and say anything. But it did not prevent me to do what I did. My point was save a human life. There's a verses in the Quran, chapter 5 and verse 32. It says, saving a human life is like saving the entire mankind, and taking a human life is like taking the entire mankind. So even though he never reached out to me, I thought, save the human life. That is more important than what he did. And I reached out, and you saw the tremendous effect of Mark Struman. Well, thank you very much.